that I could give there. Now, the other part is when we talk of data analytics, we are not talking of one activity per se, right? In the 1990s, when data collection was being undertaken in Tally for the first time, that was data analytics back then. After that, when SAP was introduced in the 2000s, that was data analytics at that point in time. Thereafter, when Power BI, Tableau, and SAP BI come out, all of that is data analytics in the 2010s. Today, automation is where the world has already reached. From 2016 onwards, we've had automation of BI and data collation, which is your SAP or NetSuite or JD Edwards implementation systems. Going forward, what are we talking about? They're talking of AI. Now, what is AI going to do? AI is basically going to take that information, again, numbers, give context to it. Is AI going to give context to it, or is it going to pick it up from the various narrations that are given in addition to the numbers? It's going to pick it up from the narrations. But today, when you're doing automation, the entire gamut of work is basically you select your buckets of either expenses or cost objects or cost elements. In this room, I don't need to explain the other two, so I'm lucky there. And in artificial intelligence, they'll not only split it into these buckets, but also give you a context of why did you incur that expense in addition to just incurring the expense a bit more than what was permitted. That why, which AI can comment on, is something that is missing today. So that is AI based, which is something that I'm not looking at today. I do not have any exposure to deep vision in cost audit. But automation is something that we have seen. I've got a company called Afton Chemicals. Very small company in India, only 350 crores. They closed their entire books of accounts in 2 days' time and their monthly MIS report on 4 days' time. What do? They use Tableau. They've used Tableau with automation to do not only their financials, but also their costing and coming up with a predictive analysis of what will be presented. What is the predictive analysis of what will be presented? Basically, highlighting every key aspect where there is a variance which needs some kind of a context to be added onto it, right? Every expense which is higher or lower has an explanation. That explanation is not currently available to Tableau. And that's why it is an automation tool, but it is not artificial intelligence. The moment there is a system which can read the narration, which can remember why did a particular expense increase. Say, for example, you had an overage that you had to pay for a delay in a truck cost. You don't remember that at the end of the month. Artificial intelligence will. And all it needs to do is record that there was a delay in a truck. That is not there today. So today, when we talk of data analytics, we are talking of automation. And when we are talking of data analytics with the perspective of cost audit, we look at how can automation be utilized in cost audit. In the simplistic form, automation can help us go from financial records to cost records without using Excel. That's the most simple way in which you can use this. And for that, you actually don't need a lot of automation. You can use very simple open source tools like Python or R, or even Excel macros for that matter. You use an Excel macro, that is data analytics. It's a very crude method of data analytics, but it is still data analytics. You're trying to make sense of figures. When you take your P&L, your trial balance, you do allocation and apportionment, and you draw it out into a cost sheet. That is data analytics. And this is one of the crudest ways in which analytics has been performed for the last 20 years, and nobody is really given that terminology to it. Now onwards, when we're talking of data analytics, what are we talking about? We are talking about the fact that I no longer can do an Excel-based macro working when I move from 200 cost sheets to 12,000 cost sheets. It just doesn't work, right? Excel will hang. I try to download a report from SAP servers hangs. What is that? That is the limitation of having excessive data. Is excessive data good or bad? Everybody agrees it's good. Everybody agrees more data is better for us. But making sense of that data is important, and that's where data analytics comes in. If I were to take a pivot table, I would have a restriction that beyond 75 or 80,000 rows, the pivot table would take 5 minutes to refresh itself. Okay, if I go onto the server, if I have a very good cache memory and everything, it might take 3 minutes. Is that real-time data? No. So what do I go on to? I move on to Power BI, I move on to Tableau, where 10 lakh rows can be synchronized and worked upon at one point in time, and it will not hang. In the same system that you are operating on, Power BI will be able to do a pivot analysis, which is, again, the most simplest form of analysis that you've done, right? I'm pretty sure everybody in this room has at least worked on a pivot table. That is data analytics. But instead of working on 10,000 rows, you are now being able to work on 10 lakh rows, 1 million rows, 2 million rows. There's no restriction on data anymore, which is where people are moving from large volumes of data into big data analytics. Okay, big data analytics बोलने के लिए बड़ी चीज है. Ultimately, it's the same thing that you've been doing at a smaller scale, right? The same way in which a cost sheet, 100 cost sheets are made out for a company with a 200 crore turnover, 16,000 cost sheets are made out for a company which is 18,000 crores turnover. That's it. No big difference, right? If I were to talk of the pharmaceutical side, because that's what I have the most amount of exposure in, the entire audit of Intas Pharmaceuticals is undertaken in 3 weeks' time. How do we do that? How can you make 12,000 cost sheets and analyze them in a 3-week time frame? Do you know why it takes only 3 weeks? Because I am the bottleneck there. The data is prepared within a week. It takes me 2 weeks to only look at the highlighted factors. You can put in your logics, and that's where we will get to next, as to how does cost audit add value. Cost audit adds value in 3 ways: sanity, sanitization, and sensitivity. So we'll get to that. Now, before I move on, I should at least talk about the tools that we use, right? R and Python was the first tool that statisticians started using, and then finance professionals have started using. That then people matured into Microsoft Excel and Tableau and RapidMiner. If you are at an entry-level job, please look at the first row and restrict yourself to at least one of those 4. Understand how can you utilize at least one of those 4 very well. If you're talking of Excel, VBA goes along with it without saying. If you do not know VBA, which is the language in which Excel talks, then you do not know Excel. All right. So as a fresher or anybody under, in my opinion, the age of 25, you need to have at least one of those 4 tools, and these are just tools, available at your fingertips. The next part of it is 9, Power BI, Apache Spark, or QuickView. All of these are high powered. So when you go into Excel and you cannot do a pivot table, you go to Power BI. So when you want to work with more data, you can go to the second set of tools. What is the problem with working with the second set of tools? If your concepts are not clear, if you are not absolutely certain about what do you want to do, how to do allocation, apportionment. By the way, costing systems have not evolved in the last 25 years. The same way that I did costing on a plant which had a capacity of 1 lakh kgs a month, this exact same thing happens when you add 5 zeros behind it. Right? It's just that the data and volume increases. The costing concept does not change. The formula does not change. Opening plus production minus sales should still equal to closing stock. That will never change. Okay, that's a fact of life. Now, with the second set of information, you can do it for 13,000 cost sheets in a week rather than having to wait for Excel to finally load its program, right? That's the benefit that you get here. And if you are very confident in both of those, in that case, you should look at the third part, which is AI languages, right? You can add deep vision in here. You can add others in here. These are AI languages which will help you go on and start framing algorithms. What is an algorithm? Logic. That's another way of saying what are the common sense or logics that you have. Right? Madam said on multiple occasions, you cannot get real application of mind. Real application of mind is basically an algorithm which has not been written till date. Once you could put it in a good algorithm with as many if this then that, you can codify it. And that's what companies are trying to do. That's what you will get to over the next 20 years period. So maybe 5 or 7 years down the line, depending on how quickly we move ahead, this slide would be outdated as well. Now, when you're talking of data analytics as a process, right? The reason that most people get confused with the term data analytics is that they look at it uh, in the same format as financial statements or cost records, which are multiple processes, multiple steps, and monotonous, meaning they follow the same format. Data analytics does not follow the same format every time. So you need to continuously upgrade yourself and learn about the business, only about the business. Your tool remains the same. Your tool will remain Power BI if that's what you have chosen for battle, right? What changes is what is the problem you are going to solve. As soon as the problem you are going to solve changes, you move into the source of the data, and the data would obviously change. If I'm trying to solve a marketing problem, I cannot have the same data as a procurement problem. Next, you need to clean the raw data. Why? Because data is there, but it's never got any context with it. You need to clean data also for removing all hyperboles and outliers. If you do not remove the hyperboles or outliers such as COVID, you will not be able to analyze the data correctly, right? If you look at COVID data, Facebook is the best company to invest in. What's happened since 2021? So next, analyze the raw data. Once you analyze the data, you should be able to come to some kind of a basic understanding of what is the data and what is it trying to say. Thereafter, you interpret the insights. To interpret the insights may not be the data analyst's job. That's where people from finance who understand numbers to a certain extent and who understand their industry or the company that you are working in can actually add value. Usually, a data analyst would need to sit with somebody else to interpret the insights, because this is adding context, this is adding flavor or adding value into the numbers that are already presentable. And then you can create visuals. Creation of visuals is what most people say that data analytics is used for. That is the simplest form that can be done, right? We've got a couple of individuals from Ernst & Young here, or so. Ernst & Young has a separate team for making PPTs. वो काम वो आउटसोर्स कर देते हैं लोगों को जिनको डेटा से कुछ लेना देना नहीं है. उनको बोला जाता है इस फॉर्मेट में मुझे डेटा चाहिए. That's it. So you can outsource making PPTs, because creating visuals is not what Power BI is for. Power BI is to help you interpret the results and analyze the data. All right. But what you see as an output is visuals. So that's why people believe that it is visuals that matter. And finally, presenting or providing alternatives. Now, this is something that you would have done even if you went around the plant and gave your initial assessment of where do you think are their wastages, right? That's the first thing that any cost auditor would do. You would go around the plant and follow the process from a raw material becoming a finished good and say, look, from my industry experience, there are 3 places where we've not followed the same principles that we should have. That's all. Now, the 3 skills that you can develop in data analytics, and all 3, by the way, are utilized in cost audit. First one is collecting the correct data. Now, do you need data for cost audit? Yes. Is it always available? Never. So it's the same skill that we need for cost audit. We need to know who to go to get the data. In some places, if an associate or an intern of mine were to ask for the data, they would not get the data for 2 weeks. An email goes from my email ID and you'll get it within a day. Can't change that. That's the way humans work. And that will continue even when you're doing data analytics. Next, analyze and present using visuals and critical thinking. The second part is more important. Just by presenting data, you'll never be able to change somebody's mind. But when you provide the logic behind why it is the correct way of looking at a problem, you'd be helping the other person do critical thinking, right? If just by providing facts and figures, you could change people's mind, then Donald Trump would never have been as close in the elections as he was. But he was, right? And that's purely there despite the fact, that is notwithstanding the facts on the ground, right? That's not withstanding the fact that he asked people to drink bleach. Next, share insights using soft skills and stories. So in my MBA class, the average age was 40. Most of them are now 45. The average age is now 45. Most of the people in that MBA class are basically storytellers. Not because they don't have a technical competency, but because they have a technical competency that they have honed with real life experiences to leave an impression. And that is important, because unless you share stories, you don't become memorable. And if you're not memorable, you don't leave an impression. And if you don't leave an impression, no matter what you present, people will either sleep through it or they'll remember what biscuit or samosa was served. Right? When we look at data analytics, the first set of data analytics that started was with punch cards. Okay, people had to punch their cards in every time they went in and came out, and the timestamps would be punched in. Right now, from there, we have moved on to relation databases, which is nothing but SQL and other database management systems that were put into framework. Those helped business intelligence tools to be developed, which helped big data to be accumulated first and thereafter analyzed. Now we are still in the phase of getting to cognitive analysis. What is cognitive analysis? Finding the why. We know how much is a problem affecting us. We don't know why. That's the stage that we are currently in. The next step of cognitive analysis, if a company reaches it, is portfolio analysis. How does cost audit filter into this? When we had punch cards, we were mainly focused on employee cost. You can go through all the books of 1980s. Everything is focused on employee cost. When we had relationship databases available to us in 1990s and 2000s, at that time, cost auditors were very focused on allocation and apportionment. Now that you have business intelligence available, people are basically using the same set of data on a greater volume and presenting it in a manner. Cost audit is presented in a manner, the findings are presented in a manner that a non-financial person, a non-technical person can understand the output, right? If done correctly. Big data analytics is something that we are still getting into. Why are we still getting into it? Because it doesn't follow the framework of what our cost records usually look at, right? And there is this, again, today morning I was giving another lecture, and that wherein we were discussing what is the accuracy of your cost allocation. Absorption costing gave you the least amount of accuracy, 35 to 40% of overhead allocation accuracy. Marginal costing, because all variable costs were covered, gave between 60 to 80%. Activity-based costing, 80 to 85%. And then there was product profitability. If you are doing product profitability correctly, then you are basically getting 90 to 95% of your cost allocated to the product, including your marketing and sales cost. Now that is missing in today's cost audit. And that will come as we add more context to the numbers that we are putting into the cost sheets, right? Or for before we allocate a number into a cost sheet. So that context is missing till date. As at least in my experience, it is missing till date. As and when it is added, we'll move to cognitive analysis. If not, effectively, there will be tools out there which will give cognitive analysis, and our bean counters and cost sheet preparers will no longer be required, because they will have a reason for the numbers before we actually audit them. And that's where cost audit needs to move on and start getting into cognitive analysis at some point in time. Now, I'm not going to get into the various types of data analytics, because this will depend on what kind of a problem you're looking to solve. When we look at value addition in cost audit, right, there is a fixed number of things that at a minimum we should be able to provide. And I say this at a minimum because if you're not doing these activities, you're actually not making sense of the data which is there in the cost sheet. This entire slide, everything can be made from a cost sheet. If you're not looking at analytics, what is analytics? Basically looking at the same data in a different way to answer a particular problem. Okay. Data analytics, making sense of the data. Now, if I'm analyzing only my cost sheets, can I get my sales growth compared to previous years? Yes. Can I get my margin on material? Absolutely. Can I get contribution? Yes. So all of these numbers, including contribution per key limiting factor, changes due to product mix, and movement in contribution groups, all of these are available from cost sheets as the only input. If I cannot do this, what am I doing with the cost audit data? What am I doing with my cost records? So this is data analytics. This is high level data analytics, mind you. If you go to McKinsey and ask for this kind of work, they'll charge you 2 crore rupees for it. Cost sheet se banta hai. Now, if you go beyond the cost sheet, and this is still a part of the data that you are supposed to have as a part of cost accounting standards. You should be able to rationalize and refocus product marketing. Why? Because you are supposed to question what is the marketing expense and why, for which product is it being spent. Okay, what is marketing rating marketing effectiveness? Bang for the buck. मैंने 2 रुपए खर्चा किया न्यूज प्रिंट पे, प्रिंट मीडिया में, मैंने 2 रुपया खर्चा किया डिजिटल मार्केटिंग में. What is the sales or lead generation that I got from both? I may get a lead generation from digital marketing which is 5 times as higher, but then I also need to check what is the conversion ratio of a newspaper versus a digital marketing lead generation. So when you do both, just 2 steps analysis, and you will get the rating of marketing effectiveness. And this is not being done. In most companies, this is not being done. Marketing is a black hole. Similarly, R&D is a black hole. दोनों में पैसा जाता है, वापस आया कि नहीं वो पता नहीं है. Then, and this is despite the fact that I'm married to a PhD. Continuous operation productivity. Now, there is a concept called OEE, right? Operational equipment efficiency. Now, overall equipment efficiency. In overall equipment efficiency, you are using the same data that you are going to use to allocate and apportion expenses. You're effectively using what, if you have time driven activity based costing, you are getting to know what is the time that an individual product was spending on a particular machine. You add capacity utilization to it and you can get OEE by a simple formula. The data is already there with you. एक multiplication and division करना है, you will get to OEE. How many people are actually doing that for their plants? Very few. And this is a part of cost audit that can add a lot of value. There is a gentleman in the from SIRC, I'm forgetting his name, who has done wonderful work in OEE for all his clients. Very few people are imitating that, right? We want to imitate the Ernst & Youngs and BCGs of the world. Why don't we imitate fellow CMAs who are doing very good jobs? So let's start with OEE. Most of these guys most of the management consultants have forgotten about OEE. Why? Data is very difficult to get on an annual basis. Do you have that data? Yes. Are you utilizing it? No. Okay, making sense of the data. We are not even utilizing it for analyzing. Next, joint production and sales planning. Now, this was a paper that was undertaken by Piyush Mehta in association with IIM Ahmedabad, wherein he looked at jointing production and planning. Basically, SNOP process को कैसे streamline किया जाए. उसके अंदर उन्होंने 3-4 formulas दिए हुए हैं. Depending on which industry you go to, you can apply those formulas and the SNOP process will become more efficient. Because the biggest question is, why does always sales drive the operations of the company? Why cannot not be joined? Meaning, whatever is going to get me more contribution or more efficiency in my manufacturing process should also have a say in what the sales team is going to get in terms of the inventory. It should not be only पहले इसका order आया था इसलिए पहले ये बनेगा. Right? It cannot be first in, first out when you are doing production planning. And that's what this paper basically relates to. Zero-based budgeting, obviously, I don't need to get into. Everybody is well aware of that. Now, this is an extract. I've made it faceless. This is something that I present to all my clients in the pharmaceutical side. What am I doing? I am basically adding one more column or one more field into every cost sheet. And that data in every cost sheet is which marketing division does this product belong to. Based on that, this quadrant analysis is done for every marketing division. And here we can identify which are the products that are earning them money, which is A category and B category. B category, we do not discontinue because even though it has very low utilization or sales, it is earning a decent amount of margin. So, kamao bache ko kyun chhedna? Correct? Next, C category products, you are neither getting volumes nor are you getting any profits, but you are still having a positive contribution. So what do? If you have idle capacity, you continue with C and D. If you don't have idle capacity, C and D will be the first set of products that you will eliminate. First eliminate C क्योंकि volume भी कम है. Then eliminate D क्योंकि आपको ज़्यादा idle time चाहिए. Yeah, you need to enhance your capacity or whatever. So then you need to eliminate D. So this is actually a reverse formula. I mean, I had to make it in this manner. Now, the two black lines that you see in the middle, right? 2.5 to 3% के बीच में जो black line है, that is the average product mix percentage. What does this mean? If I have a total sales of 100, the average 100 rupees divided by the total number of products gets me 3 rupees. So this is the average of what is the product mix percentage or the sales contribution for individual products. And similarly, what is the average contribution of all these products together? 59%. On an average, I'm making 59% all products put together. And this allows me to distinguish between good products, which are getting my contribution on the higher side, and bad products, which are dragging down the contribution. Now, will all products have to be on the A and B category? It can never happen. क्योंकि कोई ना कोई product तो पीछे रहने ही वाला है. Unless you've got a monopoly and you're charging the same contribution for each and every product, right?
It's like BCG metrics presented to data analytics.
Precisely. So these are your cash cows and dogs, but I have not given that context. You need to understand in BCG, they are giving you the context of what is the potential for the products as well. I have not given that context because I don't have it. That I leave for the marketing division to comment on. So the marketing division will comment on what is their strategy for the next year for product P1, P2, P3, P4, P5 separately. Now there is also a product P7 and P8, which would be on the E category or the eliminate products to eliminate category, wherein your contribution itself is 0 or negative. The more you make of that product, the more your losses will increase. So you eliminate those products. Simple as that. Where is this data? This data is sales minus variable cost. Do you have that data in cost audit? Have you utilized that data by only adding the context of which marketing division and putting it in a plot diagram? That's the only thing I've done. This is nothing like rocket science. मैंने सिर्फ marketing data add किया और marketing division wise products को map कर दिया. And that is a wonderful project that every client of mine loves, and none of them, they were so happy with it. This is made on a quarterly basis now. Every time a marketing team or a sales team comes out and asks, I want more budget, they are told to comment on this first. So there are certain things that cost audit will add value to, which will become a part of the business processes. And that's value addition as well. And this is nothing but data analytics. So what all questions should you be able to answer? You should be able to answer all these questions and 100 more. But these are the usual questions that we can answer with cost audit itself. Okay. And that is something that is there for everybody to see. I don't need to go take you guys through cost audit, but this is effectively what we are looking at. Now let's get into the focus of when a cost accountant looks into data analytics, what are the 3 things that they should always comment on or look into? First is the sanity of the data analytics. What do you mean by sanity? Is there a logic behind getting that set of data in place? One person can go ahead, any person can go ahead and look at what are the number of breakdowns that have happened in a particular machinery to the ambient temperature of the plant. Is that a logical thing to look at? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know that. But if I'm looking at the ambient temperature of a particular day and the consumption of electricity in my chiller, that is very relevant for me. So that's the sanity perspective that you need to look into. Okay. If I look at ambient temperature and the number of people who did not come to office on a particular day, it will have no correlation. None at all. The same number of people will be taking leaves during Diwali, jo Holi pe le rahe. Correct? If you're making people work on Diwali and Holi, something's wrong with your HR policy. But still, yeah. So sanity is the first thing you need to question. Is the logic correct?
Somebody else, just time take 2.
Sure.
Revenue is the sanity. Profit is the vanity. Cash is the reality.
Sir, startups ka kapde mat kholiye. That is actually true. But you need to understand that there are some people who are happy not making money or cash flow if they are getting market cap. So it purely depends on what your strategy is.
Multiple organizations are not making profit, but they are getting data.
Yeah.
I'm more worried about that.
So I had somebody come to me day before yesterday who wanted to open a mutual fund, distribution app. And he was not going to keep any margins for himself. And he was going to spend a buckload of money on marketing that app. And I said, what are you going to do with this? मुझे लोगों का investment behavior पता चलेगा. might be monetizable 5 years down the line, and he's gotten funding for it. So you don't need cash flow today. You don't need cash flow today. You need market cap, and you need something that somebody is willing to pay for. All right. Now, what is sanitization? Sanitization is nothing but cleaning the data. Okay. If you're looking at ambient temperature and you're looking at electricity consumption for a chiller, you need to remove the days that are Sundays. क्योंकि plant नहीं चल रहा था. You need to remove the days where you had maintenance workshop, scheduled maintenance, because those days your plant wasn't fully active, so the chiller wasn't fully active. So that is basically taking out extraordinary days, or basically taking out the outliers. Only then your data is sanitized, and then you can get a good equivalence. Otherwise, you will feel that all Sundays are cool, right? And Monday morning, because the machines need to be restarted and everything needs to happen again, the boiler spends a lot more time. So Monday morning is the coldest of all days. Right? It's not factually correct, but that's what the data will tell you if you do that kind of a correlation. Next, sensitivity. When you're looking at anything at all, you need to look at materiality. Now, activity-based costing is one of the best methods for doing costing. Everybody agrees? Is it required for a commodities trader who has a total overhead cost of 2% or less when you take out his financing cost? No, it's not. He can go on variable costing and it is 98% accurate. So that's all he will focus on. He'll focus on marginal costing because that is what is required for decision making. So having the right fit is as important in your costing system as in data analytics. Analyzing what is the amount of time that his distribution manager spent in making sure that a truck goes from Maharashtra to Asansol or Maharashtra to Guntur is a waste of your time as well as the person who's reading your report. It's better to look at what material was being sold to which customer and at what price and at what margins. That is more important or valuable for this company because 98% is variable. So that's what you mean by sensitivity. I'm not going to take you through the way forward in great amount of time because we are already out of it. Effectively, what I've said here is that you need to learn one language if you are a fresher. You need to learn one analytical tool if you are a manager. And you need to at least learn or relearn some amount of statistics to make sure that a data analytics guy does not make a fool of you. Even as a CFO. One of the biggest learnings that a few CFOs in my executive MBA class had was statistics के बिना कोई भी हम लोगों को उल्लू बना जाएगा पता नहीं चलेगा. That was effectively learning how to speak their jargons, and statistics has as many jargons as you can believe. Right? I've given certain lists of papers. I'm sure Debashish sir will be circulating this as well. So these are the departments where data was utilized for cost savings, and these are reports and publications that are available. So go through them at your own time if you want to learn more. Finally, what are the frameworks that you can utilize in costing departments? This is the last slide for the day. I won't keep you on for too long. Artificial neural networks. These are basically the same thing as relational databases, but they operate at a higher level. They operate on context in addition to numbers. रिलेशनशिप डेटाबेस में क्या बोलते थे हम लोग? एक FG है, उसके अंदर जो भी रॉ मटेरियल जा रहा है उसका एक रिलेशन बन गया. उस रॉ मटेरियल के लिए जो रॉ मटेरियल जा रहा है या इंटरमीडिएट के लिए जो रॉ मटेरियल जा रहा है उसका एक रिलेशनशिप बन गया. An increase in this raw material cost will lead to an increase in the final FG. That was relational database. Now adding context to it, why was the raw material cost increasing? And thereby, what should you do? You should increase the cost, the selling price of your FG. That is what artificial neural networks will help you do. Now, convolutional neural networks, I will not get into in great amount of detail. Simple example in here is it allows the computer to identify mistakes and bring down your COPQ, which is the cost of product quality. Okay, so when you have, for an example, an IoT product, Internet of Things product, which can do visual inspections on your behalf. एक बॉटल को देख करके 27 पैरामीटर्स पे वेरीफाई करके बता सकता है कि बॉटल के अंदर लिक्विड फिल्ड करेक्टली है कि नहीं, कोई आपका अंदर मटेरियल फ्री फ्लोटिंग है कि नहीं, is the product quality maintained, and is the bottle completely capped. That is a part of the second part. Okay, CNN. Then Recurrent neural networks, this is for time series analysis. This is something you will see in commodities and share trading. They will try to bring out what was the impact of a jobs report on the stock market. Right? Jobs report is supposed to be an indicator of the economy. What's its impact on the stock market? ये सब आपको correlation से पता चलेगा and regression से पता चलेगा. Correlation not as much. Regression makes more sense there. So you'll need to look into time series and regression together to get into recurrent neural networks. Then finally, self-organizing maps. That's pretty straightforward. They will organize based on the territorials that are taken in. I'm not somebody who believes on the. I have not seen till date the last two, but these are recommendation systems which will answer the why in context. These are still not widely adopted, so I will not comment on them. But this is something, if it does come, the role of cost accountants will go on from saying what had happened in the previous period to what are the risks and opportunities in the next period. And for this sea change to happen in your perspective, you need to be prepared with looking at the data that has happened and trying to ascertain what will happen in the future. And that's all I want you guys to look into. How do you identify risks and opportunities for your company? And when you go to a higher level, for your industry. Because if you can identify it for the industry, your company can take advantage of it, which is what a CFO or a CXO should do. Right? Thank you. I've already kept you beyond the time allotted to me. Devashi sir, all yours.
If you just can you analyze it with some case studies?
कौन सा recommendation systems?
Yes.
Sir, मैंने case studies अभी तक देखे नहीं हैं इन दोनों की.
Sir, I'll tell you what. When it comes to Rolls-Royce, which is making these
Engines
for aircrafts and all, they use these things because for them preciseness and minute detailing in costing part is very much important. So you can take the example of Rolls-Royce case study. They are looking forward for deep watch management.
Okay.
But I haven't seen it implemented.
No, I have seen it implemented. I have seen these kind of terminology as well. So please talk about how they are reducing the cost, managing the cost, and making sure that these kind of precise data analytics is working for them in their report.
And this is also based on the probabilities of what will be the risk of a part failure.
Okay.
That is also included in this.
Because for them, even the smallest of the nut bolt which is being there in the engine makes a very good sense.
Crash हो जाएगा.
Entire crash हो जाएगा.
So thank you, Shukrut. But one point I just like to ask to my young professionals. We are talking about the data analytics, analyzing of the data mining, so many jargons. I feel that we have to organize a CEP, how to keep the data properly, how to preserve the data properly, not the server and all the things. How, whenever so many data are coming through email or something like this, then how we will keep in a systematic manner. Because sometimes I feel, or sometimes I have noticed also, in some of the high profile professionals, they are just dumping the data on the desktop only. And after that, they just forget how to keep the data in a proper manner. And after that, just dumping the data like a garbage.
They also forget when to use what type of data.
Exactly. Which data is required to analyze which things. Sometimes I have kept this data somewhere. It is required right now.
So data analytics is actually not related to computing. It is related to managing your room and wardrobe in such a manner that you should find out what is
Exactly. I should find out the right file at the right time. So when my CMD is asking, just kindly give me that paper, sir, I have kept it somewhere. Then I will start shouting to my junior, where is that file?
So all ladies do the best data analysis.
Yes.
And
Yes.
in a kitchen which you have thousands of material, you know where the spare.
No, today morning during the breakfast, Saurabh was discussing, unless and until you have a very cool and peace of mind, you cannot go for the data analytics or anything. So that is the things he was discussing today morning. And one point I just like to tell you, sir, when Board of Advanced Studies and Research started the data analytics course first, they have imported the good faculties from Indian Statistical Institute. But the problem is this, I have incorporated the best faculty of India, but our students were not ready to accept. Because sometimes I find this problem that whatever the discussion they were doing, we are not in a position to understand. So again, another analysis was there. So again, the degradations. And they started talking about the Pythons and all. Then my students are telling, sir, we cannot understand the Python. And everything was going above the head. And after that, all of a sudden, I have seen that my number of participants have started reducing. From one class to another class, then first is 200, then 250, 150. Then I felt that no, Python is not the cup of tea for them. Let us think the application of Python or application of Power BI. So that courses are on the way. It will come. Board of Advanced Studies will take in due course. So thank you very much, Shukrut, for your kind presentations. And I do not know whether this type of presentation, the application of the data analytics in cost audit, has so far been undertaken by anywhere in India or not. I do not know. This subject has not yet been discussed.
Very few are.
But it is required, sir. It is required. And I feel, and my immediate past president is here, sir, I'm telling you, sir, institutes, the council has to think in this particular area. Because according to my opinion, for the last 10 to 20 years, I don't feel that institute has undertaken any research and development on these particular topics.
Knowledge of training maybe for the practicing cost accountants who are interested in doing this on the job
For upskilling the
for
existing professionals also,
And-
reskilling the students.
Exactly, because sir, I'm telling you, sir, cost audit, cost compliance, you are also a cost auditor, you are also practicing, you are also from the practicing era. So I feel that these are the areas that now the institute has to think, has to give focus. We are always telling that we are the cost auditor, we are the best cost, we know costing better than anybody. But if we do not upgrade ourselves on these areas on a regular basis, and I feel, madam, the strategic cost management, the proper diploma course on strategic cost management has to be started by my institute immediately. And not only the strategic cost management with the academicians, but with the practitioners, the people who are working in the industry. Without that, because you see that whatever the course the Board of Advanced Studies has been started, you see, DISA, DFA, whatever, no faculties are from academics. All faculties, each and every faculties are from the industry. Live example, Shodav, he is from industry. Because these are the courses which has been conceptualized by the institute. It cannot be handled by the academicians. With due respect, I'm telling you. I have a great respect for the academicians, but still I'm telling you. Unless and until this, what is the application side? If it cannot be handled by them, nothing can happen. So I will also request Raju Iyer sir just to kindly think of it. The concrete proposal has to be placed in the council so that proper management onto how to handle these type of topics. The research and development has to be started immediately, and we have to go ahead, because unless these areas, if we are not handling these areas, then who else will do? So thank you very much. So now today I am concluding this session with all of your support. Thank you very much. Felicitations, right. So I will request L. Prakash sir and Vaidyanathan sir, please come. Just I will request. वो किधर है? शाल किधर है? शाल दे दीजिए. वैद्यनाथन जी, जब थोड़ा शुक्रुत को थोड़ा हम कर देंगे. आइए. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Sir, this L. Prakash sir. आपको visible है? And this is the publications of the Board of Advanced Studies and Research. No,
I would
that is the
read it through.
this is the books which has been published on One is the forensic audit, diploma in for the study material itself,
Okay.
which we are giving to the students. And another is the, what is that? Digital transformations.
Okay.
I know that you are the only person, you are the one of the person who can appreciate these books.
And I'll definitely read through it at the least.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
And it's an eye opener also. It's eye opener. Very few topics so far on these particular topics have been handled by the institute so far. That's why intentionally I have requested him that can we bring this somewhere else. Thank you.
And come out with paid programs by practicing CMA for on-the-job training, upskilling.
Yes.
Paid program.
Mobile phone?
And with real-time cases, they can upskill.
I'm always available whenever the institute comes.
The paid program is very easy to
You are the student, then they will give them.